like basketball. I like, but I'm not good at. Yes, I'm not.
Me too.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the State of the League podcast, the only NBA podcast that is posting on 9/11. Technically, I guess we're recording this.
Today's 9/11?
Well, it's not today. We have a very busy guest on our pod today, and so we're recording a day ahead of time, like responsible folks do. I'm your host Jack, aka Jokic Joestar. With me, as always, the world famous Pablo Escobar. We are joined today by internet funny man, Twitter guy, streamer, fella, slightly biased, to talk about the Dallas Mavericks. So, Slightly, how are you doing today?
Good. Thanks for having me on. Like you said, busy guy, 9/11, a busy day for me. I spend the entire day remembering in remembrance. So I'm happy you guys were able to work around that for me.
Yeah. It's super nice. This isn't because anybody's doing anything tomorrow. We all just can't talk. It's a full day of silence and remembrance. So
I don't think people realize that. That's what you're supposed to do.
I might have some plans tomorrow.
Oh wow. Okay. Wow.
You forgot?
This guy hates soldiers. Wow. Okay.
You forgot about 9/11?
I honestly did forget, and it's crazy because I've profited so much off 9/11 on TikTok.
Yeah.
But I'm planning to go to a tea shop. I'm gonna step my tea game up. So would Mark Wahlberg be upset about that? Do you think?
Going to a tea shop on 9/11?
Yeah.
I don't think so. It feels you could be like calm and quiet and reflective while you drink the tea.
I can reflect with the tea. Oh, maybe they'll have sales. Do you think?
No,
that's possible.
Dude, if the tea shop has 9/11 sales, you got to make a video about that.
Dude, imagine you went to the tea shop September 10th and you got like the best tea of your life, and you woke up the next morning so excited to drink it, and then while you're drinking it, this terrible thing happens, and then it's associated with your new tea. So then you're like, I can't drink that anymore. Like what it happens with songs sometimes. Like if you get in a car accident listening to Drake, you can't listen to Drake anymore. You can't drink and drive.
You can't drink and drive. Exactly. There was a big list of songs when 9/11 happened that they couldn't play on the radio for like a week after.
Yeah. The Strokes had to get rid of one of their songs off the album called New York City Cops, where they were just calling them dumb.
Oh, wow. I cannot believe they would say that about our first responders. That's so sad.
The Dixie Chicks.
The Chicks. Oh, my God. What did they do again?
They said something about George Bush being a monster.
Yeah, they were like anti-Iraq war, and everyone was like, "What? We love that."
I think they were like, "Hey, can we stop killing innocent villagers?" And they were like, "No, you're out."
That's literally where Saddam Hussein is siding. Are you fucking crazy?
You've gone too far this time.
And we're full circle, baby. Dick Cheney, beautifully embraced by the American left today. Life is getting better. You know, it's the world is a great place, and we're only improving from here. It's good stuff.
If you want to tie it even further together, the Dixie Chicks are from Dallas, Texas. So they are probably Mavs fans.
Damn, that right, dude. The Dixie Chicks rooting for Dallas or rooting for Luka Doncic. That's beautiful. I love that.
I do too. That makes me happy thinking about.
Yeah, them just like sweating it out over PJ Washington corner threes and shit.
I think I saw one of the games.
Who's the most notable celebrity Mavericks fan? Is there a guy?
Well, there's Mark Cuban.
Mark Cuban is our go-to celebrity guy, but in terms of just like a courtside guest, Patrick Mahomes became the one.
Oh yeah, I forgot about him.
Yeah, but outside of that, I mean, I can't think of like an actor or anything really off the top of my head. I think Jamie Foxx is maybe.
Well, that's a big get if he is. That's not I mean, for like the Nuggets, it's literally I saw Lil Wayne went to a game one time. And that's like the only famous person I can ever. There's like football players and shit that go, and then it's like Jokic's brothers and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you would think Dallas would at least have some heavy hitters, but I guess not.
I don't know if Chicago does either. Like a consistent like Spike Lee type guy. I don't think
Well,
so.
Spike Lee, that's a crazy standard. I don't think.
Yeah.
Like it's like Spike Lee and Jack Nicholson in L.A. and then beyond that, it's like.
And then that guy in Toronto.
Oh, shout out to that
but
guy.
not that Nav, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, they're different. I would assume that'd be crazy if they were the same.
They're
guy.
different. They're different guys. They are different. I know that for sure.
All right, dope. Shout out to our Toronto correspondent, slightly biased. Thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, of course.
All right. You wanna get into it? You wanna chop it up about the Dallas Mavericks?
Yeah, let's chop it up.
All right. So
like barbecue.
Dallas. Like barbecue, like beautiful plate of Dallas barbecue.
I will say, I'm not a foodie, and a lot of Texans' opinions on food really annoy me. Like the Whataburger stuff. Whataburger is incredibly overrated as a fast food establishment. The barbecue is not comparable to anywhere else. I will say, as someone who's tried elsewhere.
Damn, that's great,
Austin.
To me, like my golden standard is Kansas City barbecue because I grew up in the Midwest, and so I don't really like. I've never gone. I went to Padre Island when I was like 10 for a family vacation, but I haven't been back to Texas since. So I haven't tried that many other like cultural barbecue centers. So I'll take your word for it. I would love to try it sometime.
Yeah, I mean, I've only had like Kansas City barbecue once, but I think Texas barbecue is pretty unmatched. But that's the only Texas elite food elitist opinion I have.
Yeah. Well, shit. Shout out to Whataburger, I guess. We're done. I mean, if you want us to talk nice about Whataburger, send us a little money, and we'll put some promo on for you.
There you go. That's how you,
other
that's
than
how you
that, we're putting unfiltered opinions out there, and you guys are fucking washed. All right. So I sent you the standard list of questions we're sending every guest that we bring on to talk about
regulation. We kind of have to.
Yeah, sure. Industry stuff, just the standard boilerplate shit. So the first question there is, how do you feel about where the Mavericks are at as a franchise?
I mean, hard not to feel pretty good after making the NBA Finals. You would think the roster got better. I think on paper it did. I'm not as gung-ho about it for sure being better as some other Mavs fans, but I do think it looks better. And you have Luka Doncic on your roster. You're always going to compete. You're always going to be competitive. And him and Kyrie last year, man, their synergy was just unbelievable. They played off each other so well, and Derek Lively was one of the best rookies in the NBA. So a lot of reason for optimism heading into this upcoming season. So I'm pretty pumped.
Yeah, definitely. I'm on board with that. Pablo, how do you feel?
Same boat. If you make the finals, you're in good shape. And then, I guess sometimes teams make the finals. We're like, I don't know if they're getting back there next year. And like, even we just did the Pacers, and we were like, we think they could make the conference finals again, but it might be tough. But yeah, the Mavericks feel legit by virtue of Luka.
Yeah. I mean, historically, the Mavs franchise won the finals in 2011 and then blew up the roster. And it took them 12 years to win a playoff series again. And then they went to the conference finals 2 years ago and definitely got worse. And then I've had this season from hell. So it happens.
Yeah, it's great. It was great to see. Yeah, I guess you would call it a bounce back year. That was just such a strange stretch of basketball. It was like the final third of 2023 leading into this season. And so it was nice to see them have such a prolific year. It was nice to see the Kyrie Luka pairing kind of blossom into what everybody kind of thought it could become. It's a pretty straightforward recipe of like two guys who are really, really good with the basketball in their hands. But I feel like, I don't know, the first run they had at the end of 2023 soured so many people on it that this past season almost took a lot of people by surprise, even though it makes sense. Like, it's two borderline all-NBA, all-star guys just dominating on ball. And so we're huge Derek Lively guys on this podcast. That was a talking point pretty much every time we talked about Dallas, was that if we weren't looking at like Wemby and Chet battling it out for like this generational superstar level debut, then what Derek Lively was doing in terms of like just consistent night to night contributions to a team that was looking to contend for the title, made the finals, made this big playoff run, that would have been like the story of the rookie class, is how good he was. And so, yeah, even though the finals, I mean, the Celtics are fucking juggernaut and it's insane.
Yeah.
And I have some questions about like how you felt about Luka's health and everything that we'll get to in a little bit. Even though the finals was a smidge of a wash, it's still a great position to be in as far as Western Conference teams go. So yeah, the second question I have for you is the franchise's offseason moves. How do you feel about them? Dallas was a pretty busy team this offseason.
Yeah. I mean, they're always busy in transaction periods. Usually that's what makes being a fan of the Mavs pretty exciting is trade. I think they made a trade every single trade deadline since they got Luka. They're constantly making moves, some for better, some for worse. The loss of Derrick Jones Jr., I'm interested to see how it's all going to play out, because what made the Mavs so good over the back half of the season was they were the number one defense in the NBA for like the last 2-3 months. Like, it was a good, solid stretch of basketball that they were the number one defense, and that carried into the playoffs. And Derrick Jones Jr. was a big key piece in that. So losing him does suck, but that Celtics series you mentioned, like it just sucks. It wasn't competitive, It just, the moment Kristaps Porzingis went like 8 of 9 in the first quarter of game 1, I was like, oh, this is over. So that's fun. But they needed 3-point shooting so bad. Like they didn't have it. Derrick Jones Jr. is not a 3-point shooter. I mean, had the best season of his career, but how much of that was just playing next to Luka and Kyrie and getting better looks than ever? PJ Washington's not a consistent 3-point shooter. At least hasn't been up until this point in his career. So getting Clay will give Luka a shooting threat that they just haven't had. I mean, outside Kyrie, I guess, but Clay is just a different type of shooter than Kyrie.
Yeah.
Tim Hardaway Jr. that one quarter.
Tim Hardaway Jr., he's probably going to be number one amongst Mavericks fans more often than not. But I got to give him some props, man, because he had stretches in his career here where even this past season where he would score like he had 40-point games this past season when Kyrie was out.
Wasn't it a franchise record, like 6 threes in a quarter or whatever, like in garbage time in the playoffs?
I think it was a finals record.
Record. Yeah,
that sounds right. Yeah.
It's crazy.
I was there. It was pretty nuts, honestly. Everyone in the crowd was like, "What is going on?"
Were they happy or were they like, "This guy"?
There was like some mummers whenever it was going on. Like, I can't, because it was game 3, the Mavs were down 3-0, or game 4, Mavs down 3-0, and it's like, this guy, like the whole season, he's just been in my hand now. Is what he wants to show up. But I'll remember his time with the Mavs more fondly than I think most Mavs fans will.
Yeah. It definitely feels we had an award that we gave out every week in this previous season called the Ferris Bueller's Week Off Award, where it was just like a guy where we're like, wasn't his week. He had a tough week. I think I gave that award to Tim Hardaway Jr. more than any other player in the league.
Yeah.
Like, he was so consistently, if he wasn't winning it, he was like the honorable mention for it for me. Just like a very tough second half of the season. But I mean, both of you guys mentioned it, the highs of like once in every 9 games, Tim Hardaway Jr. It's a sick player. So yeah, I think
the series against the Clippers in 2021 that went 7 games, he was by far the Mavs' second best player. I mean, Brunson was awful. Porzingis was sitting in the corner doing nothing. His career was better with the Mavs. I think most Mavs fans would remember, just because the lows were really bad. And he, like, from the trade deadline onward, he was awful this bad. I mean, genuinely terrible.
It was like the big 3 of fan bases hating their own players. I would say was Tobias Harris, him, and PJ Tucker for the Clippers.
Wow, PJ Tucker I knew Tobias Harris has to be number 1, obviously, but PJ Tucker is surprising to me.
Oh yeah, because he wasn't getting minutes. How did he get there? He like got traded there in some deal or something like that.
He was in the Harden trade, wasn't he?
Yes.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, so he was upset because he wasn't getting minutes, even though he's like 38 years old, and so he was publicly very loud about it, like posting on Instagram stories, like driving on the highway in Miami, saying, I'll be home soon. I'm coming home soon. I saw a lot of very mean fan art written of PJ Tucker.
That's fair. I just didn't know 40-year-old PJ Tucker had haters out there. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's funny. When a player gets a lot of money and plays bad, that's like one kind of hate. But when a player like demands shit that's just outside of their range. That's like when fans feel entitled to tell you to shut the fuck up, which like that's I don't know, it's PJ Tucker, like we're nobodies on the internet. But when fans
Right.
feel entitled, that like opens up an entire new can of emotional worms for them.
Bulls
Yeah,
fans despise Chandler Hutchison. Do you guys remember Chandler Hutchison?
I
I
do
can't
remember
say I
Chandler
do.
Hutchinson's, but I can't imagine a world where people hate him.
He got traded to the Wizards, and then he made the playoffs that year when Westbrook was there, and he said something like, "Yeah, nice to be in the playoffs, not on that trash team," something like that, but much more mild. And so Bulls fans will despise him for the rest of time because they're like,
All
he
right.
was a loser with us, and he's a loser with them, and now he's out of the league.
I respect that.
What were you gonna say?
Well, that's funny you said that because I was just thinking about that Chandler Hutchison trade a few days ago, mainly because it was like the Daniel Gafford trade. I was like, man, the Wizards just like that was an incredible trade for the Wizards. Like they got Daniel Gafford, and I don't even remember who they gave up. It's like
Troy
Javonte Green
Brown
or something?
Jr.
Troy Brown Jr.
I love wings who are unathletic and also cannot shoot. The great move.
The no 3, no D wings.
That's zig when everyone's zagging.
Yeah. they're in Chicago doing Moneyball with guys who can't do anything. His only redeeming factor, he doesn't do anything.
They watched Moneyball and they're like, we need to get undervalued guys. That was the only take.
And they just get bad guys.
Yeah, they're like, Troy Brown Jr., this guy has no value. What if he's good?
Oh man. Yeah. So in terms of the off-season moves, obviously the big one is Klay Thompson there. And I also think Najee Marshall is like the subline to the headline that is Klay Thompson. They pick both of those guys up. And it's interesting because I feel like they almost I feel like both are probably better players than Derrick Jones Jr., but they almost kind of divide his skill set in half a little bit, where it's like if you want to throw out Najee Marshall and have like a more defensive minded lineup, that's a very straightforward recipe because he's a really high level defender, and I think he does more stuff on the ball than Derrick Jones Jr. was really capable of. And then if you want to have a more offensive minded lineup, then you're starting Klay Thompson, Klay, Kyrie, Luka, all that stuff. One of my big questions for this Mavs roster is, do you think the recipe is just like be survivable enough defensively that like an overwhelmingly talented offense carries you to most of your wins? Or do you think it'll be like a bit more structured two-way attack, given how they were such a high-level defense at the end of last year?
Yeah, I think so the Najee Marshall thing, I think amongst the Mavs fan circles, it's sort of reached a point. I don't know if it's just out of boredom because the offseason is just, barely chugging along. But I think a lot of people are starting to warm up to the fact that Najee Marshall might be the bigger move when it's all said and done, just because of all the stuff he can do and how he fits in. He fits in like a glove. Like if it weren't for Klay Thompson, Najee Marshall being the starting 3 makes so much sense for the Mavericks. So I think just how they ended last season and when they made the conference finals too, it was very similar to last year where, around the trade deadline, they were just kind of a, 6-7 seed who they were just decent defensively, good offensively. And then the back half of that season, they were one of the best defenses in the league. I think that's who they want to be, is a really good defense, especially with Jason Kidd. So it'll be interesting to see if that's how they manage the rotations and stuff like that. If the goal is to be a top 5, top 10 defense again, because I'd have to imagine that is a goal.
Yeah.
Najee brings a little bit more like on ball juice and passing juice offensively. But they will I think the gap with Najee and Klay Thompson relative to Derrick Jones Jr. is there is no like vertical explosive element. Do you think that's going to hurt Dallas at all? Because with Derrick Jones Jr., it didn't really manifest in the finals, if I'm remembering right. Like it didn't end up being a huge part of their game. Like they kind of took him away. But do you think that will hurt them over the course of the entire season?
Last year was like a huge change of pace for the Mavs. They got out and they were like a top 10 transition team. I think every other year of Luka's career, they were bottom 5. Derrick Jones Jr. was a big reason for that. It was a point of emphasis. They lost their 2 most athletic guys, Josh Green and Derrick Jones Jr. So I do think they'll play slower. You're not going to have that explosive above the rim lob threat that Derek Jones Jr. was. So the pace will slow down. And honestly, I think that's fine for them. I think they have probably the best, if not the second best, half-court offensive engine in the NBA in Luka Doncic. And that's the pace that he wants to play at. He just kind of begrudgingly was like, all right, fine, I'll throw outlet passes this past season. But it's not like something he's ever really wanted to do. So that aspect, I think they'll be fine. It's weird because I think Najee's a better player than Derek Jones Jr., but the Mavs had Derek Jones Jr. doing a very specific thing, and he was better at that very specific thing than Najee Marshall, if that makes sense. So I'm just very interested to see how it all sort of plays out.
Yeah, I think that's a fair description of everything. Excitement around Klay Thompson is super interesting just because it adds. Yeah, like looking back through it, you already touched on it, and it was something that stuck out to me as I was doing a little bit of research for this. Luka has never had like that. And I mean, there aren't that many levels of that shooter floating around the league that become available, but Luka's never played with somebody like that. And so I think if you're taking away the lob threat of Derek Jones Jr., and you're instead subbing in a guy who the threat of him finishing plays is like running around off the ball and bombing it from like 25 feet on catch and shoot stuff, and he's getting like, I don't know, 8 of those looks a game or something, I feel like that probably makes for a more dangerous offensive attack than the Derek Jones Jr. stuff. Because I feel like Lively, if just like most of the lob looks that were going to Derek Jones Jr., if you end up throwing those to Lively, it's not like the offense completely crumbles or anything. You still have that vertical threat. It's just, lessened to some extent.
Yeah, no, I think the Mavs will be much better suited to finish with like the best offense in the NBA this year than they were last year. And like their defense was incredible after the trade deadline, but the reality was it kind of had to be because their offense wasn't as good as it was in years past. Like they were in these like rock fight games that they really have never been in the Luka era, where they just can't really shoot threes. They generate more corner threes than anybody. That's what they like to do. Like Luka is just gonna have the ball. We're gonna run pick and rolls for Luka. We're gonna let Luka ISO, and inevitably somebody's gonna come to help. And more than likely than not, there'll be a corner three. And Luka, probably besides Jokic, throws a skip pass better than anybody in the NBA. He gets it to the corner so easily. Like he'll pass over anybody. It doesn't matter. So that being Klay Thompson instead of Derek Jones Jr. is pretty exciting to think about. And I was getting a little pissed off because Cuban had an interview recently where he was like, yeah, Klay can just sit in the corner now. He doesn't have to run off screens anymore. It just pissed me off because the whole offseason, I'm like, that's what they need to do. Like, that's what makes Clay's. You can run him off a million screens. Like, it's one of the most lethal plays in the NBA. It's Klay coming off the screen. I was looking at it. He had more off ball. He had more possessions off ball coming off screens last year than every single team in the NBA besides the Utah Jazz by himself.
God damn. Like, by himself. Yeah. That's crazy, dude.
Yeah. According to NBA, according to NBA, I don't know how they track that stuff because it didn't sound right to me, but I was like, all right.
Yeah, no, I'm the same way. If I find a stat that supports what I think, then I'm not double checking that shit.
I was like, that doesn't. Every team was like 2.5 off screen possessions a game. I was like, that doesn't sound right, but okay.
It must be a lot of marketing up there. They need to. They need to get Ice Bryce coming off more of those screens.
Marketing. Bryce Sensabaugh, big year.
Oh, the biggest. The last year, Wemby stole his Rookie of the Year award. To be fair, he didn't get the minutes because Will Hardy sabotaged him. But this year, we're coming for Most Improved Player. But the mainstream media is trying to say Wembanyama's getting that award this year. So, and Wembanyama is my GOAT already. So it would help. Yeah, it would give him good potential to rack up every single possible award. Because if he'll have Rookie of the Year, he'll have Most Improved Player. Depoy will be easy. MVP will be easy. Sixth man is going to have to come at like the end of the career, like Bill Walton arc.
Yeah, right. So you're talking about Bryce Sensabaugh, right?
No, I'm talking about Wemby as far as as far as my GOAT racking up every award. Bryce Sensabaugh probably like
a couple MVPs if Wemby's hurt or something.
I would say he's more for the like Kareem type records, not like the trophy case.
Okay. Right. Well, cool. We got our obligatory Ice Bryce love, and I can't believe
You can't
we
talk
missed
Western
that.
Conference without talking Ice Bryce. I'll tell you that.
The Western Conference runs through him in a lot of ways.
That's
Exactly.
probably why they got Najee, because he's more well equipped to guard him than I
Yeah.
think Derrick Jones Jr. Because Derrick Jones Jr. is too thin. Bryce
Right.
backs the wagon into that. He's creating so much space.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool. Looking
Like
around
Ice
at the peripheral moves. They picked up familiar face, Spencer Dinwiddie. That's exciting. And then Quentin Grimes as well was another big name that popped up. And so those two, I'm curious. I was listening to some other like Mavs pods in preparation for this, and a lot of people coming in, I was under the impression that like Najee would do a little bit of like on ball third guard stuff. But those pods that I listened to, they seem more convinced that that will be Dinwiddie's role. Have you thought about that at all?
Yes, I've gotten a lot of pushback from the Mavs communities because, like, on Locked On Mavs episodes, I would say that I personally think Dinwiddie might get DNPs a fair amount. Like, I'm just not convinced that he should walk in and have a rotation spot over Dante Exum. Like, I don't. I thought Exum was great for the
Yeah,
Mavs.
I don't
last
think
year.
that's an insane thing to think. By the way,
I mean, Exum was awesome for the Mavs. He shrunk in the playoffs, which sucks. But I don't think that you can just completely ignore the regular season entirely. Where Dinwiddie has not been a good basketball player since he left the Mavericks. Like, just straight up, has not been good at all. So I don't know why we're just like, yeah, Dinwiddie's the sixth man.
Last time I saw this guy, he was great.
Yeah, that is what it is. That's 100% what's going on. But no, I would be very interested. And before the Dinwiddie thing, I was very interested to see what the offense would look like if Najee Marshall was having a more on-ball playmaking role. But the Mavs also, if Luka and Kyrie are healthy, very rarely are those two not one of those two not on the court. So either of these guys would be more of an off-ball guard or do off-ball stuff unless one of those guys gets hurt. And I think that was the main thing getting Dinwiddie is you just feel better about your offense if Luka or Kyrie aren't playing, or both, God forbid, and Dinwiddie's sort of running the show.
Oh, that's such a funny hypothetical. Luka and Kyrie are both out. Dinwiddie's bringing the ball up, and Mavs fans are like, I feel good about this.
Yeah, I mean, the alternatives like Jaden Hardy, which very polarizing in Mavs circles. But
oh my God, yeah. Well, the same. I don't remember. I think it might have been like a Locked On Mavs episode that some guy was doing alone. The way he talked about Hardy, like he was being nice about it, but he was like, we've given him these chances in summer league, in preseason, in the regular season, in the postseason, and it hasn't quite come together. Like with Hardy, it would be nice, obviously, if like the 22-year-old made a step forward in the offseason. Is that something you think? I feel like the Mavs have done a pretty good job, like insulating themselves from needing that to happen. It would just be like a bonus.
Yeah, I mean, he became in the playoffs because Exum shrunk to nothing. Hardaway was unplayable. Josh Green unplayable. So it became like Hardy just kind of got slotted in at times, especially in that Western Conference Final Series. Just started to get like 10 plus minutes a game, and he had some flashes that were pretty exciting, but I just, after watching him he's 22, like he was he like a top 5? I mean, before that weird G League Ignite season, he was like a consensus top 5 guy. Yeah, huge recruit. So the talent is there. I don't know if it's there for the Mavs, if that makes sense. Like, he strikes me more as a guy who's tacked on in a trade, and then 3 years from now, it's like, oh my God, remember Jaden Hardy on the Mavs, and now he's doing this.
Yeah, marketing with the Bulls, for example, something like that.
And the Cavs, and the Cavs.
And the Cavs, that's fair.
That would stink if Hardy had a marketing arc and it was somewhere else.
Yeah, marketing, I don't know. Like, at that point, if a player takes that big of a leap, I'm not kicking myself if I'm a Bulls or a Cavs fan.
No.
Yeah, so other than that, I agree with you. I think like the whole third guard discussion is really just like I think it's Kyrie centric. Like if Kyrie plays 65, 70 games, it's not really a discussion, but 58 last year hasn't been the most consistent guy health wise. So it is nice to have a little bit more depth in that position. Luka, what did he play last year? He played 70. So yeah,
70.
I mean, he's a workhorse. Yeah, I just think it's fine to have Dinwiddie there, but I agree with you. DNP's a lot of the time, if everybody's healthy, would not surprise me at all.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. And then Grimes too. I mean, I don't really know what to expect. He was more so just a tack on in a salary dump trade, in my opinion. And they're just sort of taking a waiver on a guy who has shown a decent amount of flashes before, but I'm not like my hopes aren't super high for him, to be honest.
Yeah, he was pretty cool in New York, but then it should have worked out in Detroit. Like out of all teams, if they can't use him, I mean, who can use him?
He played 6 games. I mean, like that was such a weird 6 games.
Was he injured or was he not?
Yeah, he got hurt. He got hurt.
Okay. All right, that makes it better.
Just I'm willing to write off last year for Quentin Grimes as like this very weird year because the start of the season he was mad in New York because DiVincenzo was eating into his minutes and then he gets traded to the Pistons and gets hurt. But it was a bad year last year. I mean, no toys around it really for him. So,
and Bogdanovich didn't do good after that trade either. So maybe that trade was just cursed.
Yeah, that's right.
Will we
didn't do anything either?
Will we get any Omax Prosper this year? Is there any chatter?
I want this guy to be good so bad. I really root for him. It's maybe, but it's not a make or break thing at all for the Mavericks. It's funny because in that draft last year, Omax was this guy is like ready to go player, where Lively was this guy might take some time. Like maybe we go get Clint Capella or something and let Lively sort of learn like an NFL quarterback, like be the backup for a little bit. But then it was like the complete opposite. Like the moment they got the training camp, they're like, oh no, Lively's ready to go, and Omax is not ready at all.
And now I'm already seeing videos where Lively is like at Duke practice coaching up Malawatch. I'm like, how much have you learned already? Like I remember you were like so raw, and now he's already to the point where he's like, go Bears ass. Can't believe that.
Yeah, I love that. Maybe this is a sign I'm getting older because I've never bought into like this is a great kid, good head on his shoulder, like he's gonna succeed. I've never bought into that. I've always thought that was bullshit in a lot of ways. But Lively's like one of the first where I'm like, I don't know, this guy just might get it. Like there's just something about him. Like he just seems like a professional NBA player at 21 years old.
I mean, yeah, it was a lot. I don't know. I feel like even just strictly on the court, you bring in Gafford mid-season, who is like he's been around and he's a high-level player. And in the biggest moments of the playoff run, it was like very clearly, Gafford's good, but like Lively being out there takes this team to like a different level of competitive. And so, yeah, I mean, I think there's just a bunch of stuff that's like Lively, he's fucking ready, man. He's good. You guys got a good one, and that rocks.
Will he ever really be a shooter? Will he ever really be a corner 3 guy, do you think?
I think it might turn into something like you saw from Bam over and that's not a great comparison because Bam's always been a great mid-range shooter, but Bam was like the Heat obviously set Bam down over the last like 20 or 30 games of the season. They're like, yo, you're shooting 1-3 a game, like at least. Because he went from
Mobley too, I guess.
Yeah, Mobley too, where it's just like you're shooting 1 a game. We don't care if it goes in or not. Like we just want you to shoot it. Maybe we can get there. But the thing is it doesn't have to though. Like that's what's nice about Lively. It's not this make or break hypothetical. I'm trying to think of all the centers over the years that we've seen clips of in the gym. Andre Drummond hitting threes, where it's like, oh my god, Drummond's hitting threes now.
Dwight,
this changes everything.
If he could add that, he'll be good. And it's Lively's already good, so it would just be nice at that point.
What does Lively shoot from the free throw line? Is he?
Oh, it's 50. I mean, he's a terrible free throw shooter.
All right, so maybe we'll wait on the 3-point shooting.
Yeah, the free throw shooting was really bad towards the end of the season.
Yeah. Oh well. I mean, you can't expect him to be flawless, and so I think of all the things to improve, is free throw shooting easy to improve? You guys think, or like is it like one of the more difficult things for guys to get better at?
I mean, I feel like it's a touch thing. Like you kind of have it or you don't.
Yeah, that has to be it. I mean, I can't. It's been the biggest mystery in basketball, maybe, where it's just like LeBron James, this guy does everything on the basketball court. He's just shot 41% from three last year. LeBron James did in year 21, but yet he just can't shoot over 75% from the free throw line, like ever. It's not like LeBron's not in the. LeBron's in the gym. It's not like he's not
He's got
working on
literally more reps than anybody on earth,
Yeah,
probably.
literally.
Yeah,
That's true. He's probably shot more free throws than anybody of all time at his age.
And with LeBron, it's crazy because like he has actively gotten worse as his career has gone on. Like there were years like the Miami into like the second Cleveland stint where he was all right, and then like I don't know. I'm looking at 2010, he's 77. 2009, he's 78. But like. Yeah, he has like a 5-year stretch where he's like 69, 60, 66%. God damn, dude.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. That's crazy to me. I hope that doesn't happen with Lively because there's not that much room to go down.
I was about to say 66 would be really nice for Lively if we can get to that number.
Yeah. All right. So, one of the better, more active off seasons in the NBA so far. Shit's wrapped up at this point, but it was good for them, and I liked it. The third question we got for you today is about the expectations heading into this NBA season. What would a disappointing season look like versus a surprisingly nice one? How you feeling?
Disappointing. I mean, if we're just getting it like no injuries or like limited injuries. Being in the play-in tournament would be a big disappointment, I would say. To me, this is a mid-50s win team. Like that would just be my expectations contending for a top seed in the West if they're healthy. They won 50 games last year. Their over/under right now is 49.5. I mean, I don't see that. I don't understand how the expectation is they got worse record-wise, especially considering going into the trade deadline last year, they played more starting lineups than anybody in the NBA. So they did have like a weird health season to start the year and then a big trade deadline. And I just think mid-50s win sounds about right to me. They'll be a good basketball team. That season where they missed the play-in tournament has just completely broken everyone's brains, I feel like.
Yeah, that's fair. I think the weird shit about like every over-under I see is like now that I understand it's like it's more so based on like how they'll be able to get people to put money on it than it is like necessarily 100% realism. That helps a little bit. And I just feel like, like I guess not that many people are hammering the over on Dallas, but to me, that feels like a no-brainer. I feel like Luka and like good players at this point is like a walking 50 wins if he's healthy. And so to add Kyrie, to add Clay, like I think Clay probably leads to at least a more productive regular season for them, whether or not like the defensive problems and all that comes back to bite them in the postseason. We could talk about in a little bit, but in terms of like, I feel like this is the season Luka is like legit stamped MVP finalist, really, really in the running for the award. And have they ever had home court advantage in the playoffs for multiple playoff series?
Multiple? No.
Okay. I feel like this is the year they should be able to do that. Like a top 3 seed would be really cool.
Yeah, I think the highest they finished is 4th in the Luka era.
It's the West. It's a fucking bloodbath.
Also, they don't. I just from what it feels like to me, it doesn't seem like there are a few teams in the NBA that you can tell just don't care. Just get us in the playoffs, and we don't care really what our seeding is. The Mavericks feel like that to me in a lot of ways. So I wonder if that might factor into things too. If it's like the home stretch of the season, the Mavs have locked up a top 5 seed or whatever, and they're like, yeah, we're cool with Luka sitting like 3 of the next 5 games.
Yeah, that's fair, I guess. Because that's another thing is like what was his official injury in last year's postseason that kind of continually hampered him?
It was a knee sprain, and it was one of the most confusing storylines I can remember. I had a full-fledged doctor on my stream once because I'm like, what is happening here? Because it was the biggest mystery. His knee was bleeding every game. Like that was a real thing.
Oh yeah.
I know so let me just say this from a Mavs fan perspective who watch all of the games. Let me also say this to somebody who over time, Eastern Europeans have flooded my DMs with threats that you'd have to see to believe. Because I'm not, I'm not like the. I mean, I'm a big Luka guy, obviously, but I'm not like this diehard Luka defender. You know, I've been critical of him. I mean, he has me blocked on Twitter. Like, I've been critical of him at times.
Damn.
What did you say that? What got you the block? Do you think?
I have no idea. I stumbled across it randomly. Like, it was just somebody added him, and I clicked on his profile, and I just saw your blocked screen. And I was like, oh, okay.
That's tragic. Oh my god.
So I'm not like this. You know, I'm not like the swipe a cam of the Luka Doncic community, where I'm just going hard.
That's a good nod, man. Hell yeah.
I don't know Swipe a Cam. Is that a Twitter guy?
Yeah.
Twitter,
He's big Nuggets Twitter. He's the guy that Kevin Durant in the Olympics was like, stay on that side. Like he's a Jokic like dick rider, like crazy. And he's my mutual. We're cool. But like that's like a very accurate way to describe him is he's fucking on board with Jokic, and he was rooting hard for Serbia in that I guess it was like the pre-medal round or whatever, and that's the guy that Kevin Durant was back and forth a little bit at like 4 a.m. in Paris. That's him.
I gotta be honest, I didn't think that was weird.
Him rooting for Serbia?
Yeah, I mean, you're a Jokic guy too. Were you not like?
Oh, I mean, to me, I can't lose in that situation because I wanted the U.S. to win. Like, I don't really care about like Serbian, like the basketball or the countrymanship of it all. I was rooting for the U.S. Those are my guys. But if Jokic wins, the propaganda, the aura, all that shit, it's through the roof. So I wasn't like sweating it out or anything. But yeah, I don't really think it's like an insane thing to do to feel more camaraderie or whatever towards the guy that plays for your team that you're rooting for 82 games and everything, to have more of a connection with that guy than just with like the guys that play for the United States. I don't care that much.
I was rooting for Serbia.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I feel like Team USA basketball has reached a point where they're favorites heading to every game. Like it's not like, oh, I wonder if Team USA is going to sweat this one out. So it is kind of fun being like the underdog, and oh, that'd be kind of cool if Serbia pulled it out. Like, I'm not gonna lie, when what was it, 2021 Olympics, I guess, when Slovenia was in it, I was full-fledged rooting for them. Like, if they played Team USA, I was rooting for them to win, just because it would be hilarious if Luka had that on his resume.
Yeah. My angle is purely like, I already think Jokic is maybe the greatest offensive player of all time. At worst, he's one of them. And I just think this will make it easier for other people to see that. The trophy case watchers, it'll sell that to them more. So I was like, hey, I'll be happy for it. And now I'm just gonna bring this up all the time if it happens.
Think how stamped Manu is. Like, you can't really say anything about Manu Ginobili, and it's just like, well, remember Argentina? And it's like, that's true.
Although they did do a good job branding that as U.S. failure. Like, we fell apart.
Yeah.
We didn't they didn't win that. We lost that.
That's classic. That's on brand. But where were we even talking about? Oh yeah, the Luka knee injury. I don't know how we even got to that.
It was because you brought up Swipe a Cam. There we go.
All right, I'm saying this as somebody who's not like I mean, I will defend Luka, but it's not like my life's mission. He was not the Luka Doncic we saw all regular season and the postseason. He just wasn't. Like, people call that a coping mechanism. I watched every single game. He was clearly, it happened, I want to say sometime in March, this knee injury, that he would just constantly start bleeding from the knee. I was like, what is that? I thought maybe it was a floor burn. Like, he just got a really bad floor burn, and it just kept opening like a scab almost. Like, he didn't let it heal. I brought a doctor on. He was like, no, it's probably knee injections. Like, he's probably getting knee injections before every single game. Damn. And that's probably like the needle insertion thing. So it was like this mysterious thing. Nobody really knows what it was, but it was clear and obvious, especially early in the playoffs, especially against the Clippers, where he just wasn't that great.
Yeah.
You could tell that he was operating at maybe 50, 60%. And I think he got better as the playoffs went on. I don't know how much of that was he actually felt better, or he just was finally like, all right, I know my limitations. I know on my step backs or whatever, this is how I have to generate my power. This is how on my drives I can generate, power. That's more so what it felt like to me. Because you bring it up and people are like, well, the Timberwolves, he just magically got better. It's like, well, no, but I think he just managed the injury better, if that makes sense.
I also think that's a way better. McDaniels is a matchup specifically. Like the way that he handled it is not he wasn't doing things that would have required like a great healthy knee. Like getting McDaniels onto your hip and then being in like the floater throw the lob thing that completely fucked the Timberwolves up. That's not necessarily an action that requires a ton of burst or anything.
More juicy bunda than a flexible.
More thickness.
Yes, that's 100% true. The Clippers, I went back and watched one of the games recently. I mean, Ty Lue was they were throwing everything at him. They were making him work. I mean, that was really a Ty Lue masterclass in a lot of ways. They just didn't have the pieces, and Kawhi Leonard was dead. So that would have been a really fun series if Kawhi was healthy, honestly. But the injury stuff is concerning. But I'm happy he basically had a full summer off for the first time since his rookie year, I think.
Yeah, and it doesn't help when you talk about like people being like that's cope. It definitely doesn't help that Luka is like, I mean, since Jokic won and since Jokic has been more in shape and stuff, Luka is almost like the poster fat boy for the NBA for a lot of people. And so like him, I agree, clearly not 100% the way that he was moving around out there. I feel like so many people were ready to just be like, he's not in shape. And you see that with a bunch of people. You see that with some of the Embiid stuff over the past several seasons. You used to see, I mean, Jokic never really got hurt the way that Luka was this postseason. But yeah, it was just like I think that's like an annoying aspect of where he's at in the NBA content sphere right now. It's like anytime he's not 100%, there's a good chunk of people that are just like, well, he needs to work harder or be in better shape and stuff.
I will say over the course of the regular, that's a criticism I've had at times of Luka. I never thought it this year. I thought he came into the season in shape. I thought he was in shape all season long. He has this weird body. I don't know what it is, where one night he looks skinny. I don't know what happens. The next day it doesn't look, I don't know what it is, but people always show clips of when he was 19, 20 years old. I'm like, dude, he was 19 and like 20 years old. Like people grow.
And I am guilty of that because I saw a clip a few days ago that I was like, he looks so different here. But it's not necessarily that A, he's like fat and out of shape, or B, that he was a better basketball player there. Like he just, his body has undergone a massive transformation where you see a lot of guys that when they bulk up, they get more cut and they just look sick as hell, a la Giannis or whoever you want to say. But I think with Jokic and Luka both, as they've gotten stronger, it hasn't necessarily resulted in like looking more chiseled or anything. They're just like bigger bodies out there.
The Jokic one was always insane to me because you just watch the games. It's like, this guy's got like one of the most insane motors in the NBA. Like I've never understood the Jokic ones. Luka ones I do get, but he led the playoffs in minutes. There was a stretch in the season. He led the season in minutes per game for a huge chunk of the year. So, I mean, he plays all the time. He's got a huge usage rate. I mean, he's in shape. It's just,
it's just a different like body composition. When I look back at the bubble Clipper series, I do think that I do feel like that would be better shape for him to be in, but it's just more of a different shape because I feel like it gave him more speed and a little bit. It made it easier to attack off the dribble. Right now, I think he's clearly stronger than he was back then, and it gives him an advantage in those areas. And like you said, probably like make some bumping into people and making those mid-range Dirk type shots probably is easier now than it was then. But I do wonder if is this the best version of his body? He's definitely like he has one of the highest loads in the NBA. It's like him and Trae Young, and that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, I've been one of the reasons I sometimes get messages in Eastern European languages is because I've long said that he plays too much basketball and he's just gonna have to take summers off. And of course, that if you're a Slovenian, that's not what you want to hear. You hate our country. He cares like this matters more than the Mavericks, and I get all of that. Like I get how it comes off and sounds, but the reality is there's not really been NBA players who have the usage that Luka does, and they play in every single summer tournament every year of their career. Like guys at certain points have to start picking and choosing. Dirk had to start picking and choosing. Like that's just going to have to be what happens.
Well, what if he just plays in everything, but he never plays defense?
Oh, okay.
See, that would be I would be okay with that.
I give that to you, Sharks.
Here's the thing. What really got me on this, Luka's gonna have to sit some international summers off, was last year. What was the last year's tournament? The World Cup. They were playing, they lost to Canada or something. And I guess for whatever stupid reason, they have like a minimum game requirement thing. So even though they lost or out of the tournament, they played the next day. And what was overall pretty meaningless, I said meaningless on Twitter, and people were very upset because it means a lot for the country. But I was like, okay, well, in the grand scheme of things, it's a meaningless game against Lithuania or something. And on a second day of a back-to-back in a meaningless game, Luka played 39 of 40 minutes. And I was like, dude, this is unreal. Like, this can't be happening. I'm sorry. And I don't think it should happen. Like, his minutes on the Mavs are too much too. I've long said that as well. Like they need to cut down how long he plays, and hopefully with the roster this season they can do that.
Yeah. There's with this roster, I feel like there's a bunch of different combinations that you can throw out there with like Kyrie spearheading the attack, regardless of whether you want to stack it like more defensively and just let him cook, or let him be like an initiator for a bunch of guys that are a bit better on offense. There's just a bunch of different stuff you could try out that will get you like net positive minutes when Luka is not on the floor. And really that's all you're looking for. You don't need it to be like dominant basketball without him out there. You just need to get him some rest. So I think they're in a good spot for that. Expectations, NBA season, disappointing versus surprisingly nice. I'm curious how you feel about the OKC matchup and how it's changed. That's obviously two teams who have rotated out a good chunk of personnel with like the Hartenstein pickup and the Caruso deal. How would you feel about, I feel like that could be the conference finals next year, no problem. How do you feel about the matchup there right now?
Yeah, I mean, I've long liked the Thunder. Shea's probably my favorite non-Maverick in the NBA, so I like them as a team, and they got a lot better. And like, I guess it kind of gets discussed, but a big reason they lost that series was, I mean, they were getting killed by Lively. Like, Lively was destroying them on the boards. So bringing in Hartenstein definitely brings somebody who they can play next to Chet, and that will help out tremendously. Another thing is they were, so the Kyrie Irving stats in that series get brought up all the time, how he wasn't great. The reality was they were double teaming Kyrie Irving. Like, they were letting Luka go one-on-one against Dort, and they were sending help to Kyrie to sort of try and take Kyrie out. And that led to PJ Washington shooting a million wide open threes in the corner. Like, it's not a mystery why PJ Washington went off in that series. He was shooting wide open threes over and over and over again. So adding a guy like Caruso, I think, means that they might feel confident, guarding Kyrie straight up, guarding Luka straight up. And now that's kind of what the Celtics did. And you saw how the Mavericks offense can struggle when a big chunk of their offense is Luka's going to go do this, Kyrie's going to go do this. They're going to generate so much help. Then we can do whatever we want off of that. But really, the reason why the Thunder lost was they didn't have anybody else step up offensively besides Shea. I mean, Shea was incredible in that series. Like, he was the best player in that series, just performance-wise over those 6 games. J-Dub wasn't that good. Chet slammed into a rookie wall like in February and just wasn't very good offensively from that point forward. Yeah. So they need, I mean, Caruso and Hartenstein aren't answering that question, really. What they really would need is J-Dub in the playoffs turning into the guy he is in the regular season, pretty much, or Chet.
Yeah.
Doing the same thing.
I need to shut my. I remember the Mavs Thunder series tipped off, and J-Dub had a higher rating than LaMarcus Aldridge in 2K, and I tweeted, I was like, I don't know if LaMarcus Aldridge was ever this good on like a 55-win team or whatever. And like half series.
All time.
I mean, not all time. I think LaMarcus Aldridge is better, and I just said that. And then immediately it's just shit in the bed, J-Dub. Like, he fell off a cliff. So that's on me, everybody. I'm sorry. I'll be quiet next time. And J-Dub, I'm sure 25 points per game in the conference finals. It'd be beautiful. But yeah, I think I don't know. For some reason, I just keep getting stuck on them, on that being the conference finals. I don't know how the seeding is going to shake out or anything. I just feel like the Wolves have not improved in a way that solves any of the issues Dallas gave them last year. I am not super confident. I mean, they have Jokic. That's the whole pitch for Denver this year, but I'm not super confident they're going like to the conference finals or anything. And then that's really, I guess you could talk about Memphis maybe, but like that's really like the top of the West in terms of talented teams. So I feel like the Mavs are in a really good spot.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you on the Timberwolves. I think the Timberwolves are actually being a little overrated in all of this conversation. They're definitely contenders in the West, but I'm not super confident like everyone else is that they're taking like this step forward that people expect. Because I don't know what you're really banking on. Like Anthony Edwards taking a hypothetical leap forward. Yeah, it could happen, I guess. I go back and forth on the Nuggets. I mean, if you have Jokic, you're always going to contend. It really just comes down to Jamal Murray for me. If he's healthy and looks good, which he didn't in the playoffs, then they're as good as anybody. And then I don't know if it's just because at the start of the summer, I was really in on the Grizzlies. And I don't know if it's just I'm getting bored or whatever. I'm just starting to come off of them a little bit. But they've been, anytime Jaw's healthy, they're really good, though.
Yeah, it's just tough because I don't know. The knee-jerk reaction is like, okay, everybody's coming back in Memphis. But then the more you think about, okay, we have to reintegrate a year. It's not going to be exactly the same, whether or not you want to point to like Dylan Brooks, Marcus Smart now being in that role, which, I mean, like that was a thing in Boston was like high leverage moments. Marcus Smart might fuck you guys up a little bit. And like we haven't even had to deal with that because they were so bad last year. And then you have to talk about integrating Edie into like the Steven Adams type role, whether or not that will work, what a backup plan is for that if it doesn't. They're just like the ceiling is obviously there, but the question marks are a little bit more prolific in Memphis than they are in a place like Oklahoma City.
Yeah, and I guess Edie for me would be their make or break thing, and that's always just terrifying. You're like a rookie being your make or break thing, but that was in a lot of ways the Mavs a year ago with Lively.
Yeah.
Like if Lively wasn't good, I don't know what last season looks like.
Yeah. It'd be way funnier if you came in. I'm sold on the Grizzlies because like when I had a rookie big man, oh my god, my life was incredible. So I think it'll be really good
it's pretty hypocritical because this time last year I was like, no, Mavs will be fine. Like rookie bigs, I know historically it's tough, but this one will work. But in my case, it did.
It
so,
did.
Who knows?
And Lively played like 12 games, and Edie's played 1,200.
yeah, that is true. That is true. So I don't know. It'll be interesting with them. You know, this is so stupid, but I look at this team and I'm like, why do I like them as much as I do? I'm trying to shake it out of my head. Mm-hmm. This could be because this guy is, I think, the best player of all time. So I've always had a soft spot for him. But the Lakers, for some reason, to me, I think are better than people are giving them credit for. And in some ways, I feel like if the bracket shaped up to where they could avoid the Nuggets in the playoffs, then maybe there's a pathway for them because they've been competitive in the postseason. It's just the Nuggets come around and just spank them. And the games are close, but when it's the final 3 minutes, it's just Jamal Murray's like, all right, I know I'm 3 of 14 so far in this game, but I'm about to make every single contested jumper that I shoot. So
that's and D'Angelo Russell is like, I'm making no wide open jumpers at all.
I will be shooting 7% for the remainder of the series.
Yeah. I still feel like game to game, LeBron could be the best player in any series. Like even probably not against Jokic, but outside of that, like in the West, I don't know. Like he could, and even Jokic, like he could theoretically match. And then Anthony Davis is still a complete monster. So it just comes down to how much support are they getting.
Yeah. There was. I don't remember what game it was specifically, but there was the one where like Anthony Davis shot, I want to say like 10 of 11 from the field in the first half on like contested mid ranges. Like it was like a real display of what the ceiling of him can be. And I think that was the one they still ended up losing on like a Jamal Murray buzzer beater or whatever. But I don't know them. So the Lakers and the Warriors and the Suns all occupy this very weird space in my mind where the upside, especially with the Suns and the Lakers, is like self-explanatory with how many great players you have at the centers of those teams. But if like one thing falls off the rails, which we're talking about teams that are being spearheaded by guys who are 40 or near 40 years old, if one thing falls off the rails, then it gets really dicey for them really quick. So I don't know if they could get to the postseason, avoid Denver. I'm not opposed to like being high on LeBron and Anthony Davis, especially if the JJ move. If they make it there, I assume the JJ coaching move is like working really well.
That's true. I mean, that's a move that we could like this time 4 months from now in December, you could see like the wheels falling off in a hilarious fashion with the JJ Redick stuff. I could see the Lakers going a bunch of different directions, but you squint and it's like, well, if LeBron is
you see less
the
gray
Olympics
hair when you squint.
Yeah, that is true. That's true. It's like, oh, is it 2013? Is he on steroids again?
He's looking big. Damn, don't cramp, LeBron.
Wow.
Calm down. Have a banana, man.
You can sort of see it.
Yeah. So
Christian Wood.
Oh my God, I forgot he was even there. Christian Wood, Dalton Connect, baby. Austin Reeves. They're making a run. All right. So I mean, you already touched on it a little bit. The Dallas Mavericks, routinely one of the most active teams in the league in all of the exchange portions. So is there a midseason trade that you want or expect the Mavs to make next year? And I don't know, like if they were going to do something, what part of the team do you think they'd be addressing?
So this is the one time where I'm like, I'm very hopeful that there's no moves at the trade deadline. I hope that this is just the team and maybe they upgrade along the margins somewhere in some way. But a lot of, like, I would say they've probably been the most active trade deadline team of the last 5 years. I mean, they've made huge moves at the trade deadline. Pretty much every single year, but most of it comes out of desperation. Like they're usually around 500 at the trade deadline, pawn off Kristaps Porzingis, make the conference finals. Next year, trade for Kyrie Irving. Next year, huge trades that involve 2 first-round picks, PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford. I'm hopeful this year things just kind of pan out. Like this is the team that they wanted. They built a good team. And I guess like if they could somehow find a wing who can defend and be reliable offensively, but you're talking about a $40 million player. Like that's somebody who's making $40 million in the NBA today. So I just doubt that player will be available. I can't think of who it would be.
How would you feel about getting like a big wing who is more of a passing type player and like maybe really good at sideline out of bounds players and someone who could be really fast in transition, who can kind of bring like a Derrick Jones Jr. element, except he's not able to jump. And he's more
good defensively.
Well, yeah.
So
yeah. But what would you think about getting that guy at a very low cost?
Hypothetically, this player you're talking about, this hypothetical player, is a player that I never really liked at all in any real way. But for some reason, I think that player could win Most Improved Player this upcoming season. So, but I just don't think for the Mavericks though. So this hypothetical player, maybe on the Bulls or something, is a better fit for this guy.
Well, I don't, because another thing is he played for OKC, so he knows all the schemes, and he probably took intel and put it in his pocket before he walked out, because he was upset. Remember, so he's a slighted employee, so this could be useful in a playoff series. Like maybe he's like, oh, Shea, he drinks soup before every game, but they don't have it on Tuesdays, so target him on defense on Tuesdays, something like that, like intangibles,
That definitely changes things. I would consider it. Plus, we're in there. This hypothetical player, you already have the white point guard, and now we're just adding more because this guy just sounds white to me. I don't know what it is.
Yeah,
sideline out of bounds stuff like screams white. So
it's because I said he can't jump.
Oh, okay, that's what it was.
The titular white man. Yeah, okay.
Right. The stereotypes.
Yeah, this is really good. I want him to stay in Chicago because if he wins Most Improved Player, they're giving him $50 million, baby. He's getting paid. Oh man.
It's just funny because I have not liked Giddey as a player for years. And he was so bad in the playoffs. And they traded him. And I was like, well, wait a second, that might be pretty good for the Bulls. I don't know why. It just immediately was like, I think it's because you can see him like he can do some good stuff when the ball's in his hands, but that was just never a thing with the Thunder. That was like never going to be a thing, really.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure there will be 4 transitions a game next year where you're like, whew, my God, he's so fast. Holy shit. That you just don't get with the Thunder.
The nice thing too is there's probably gonna be 15 to 20 people watching those games every night where the Thunder are a little bit more eyes on them. So you'll just see the highlights and be like, man, Giddey's balling out.
Oh,
Oh,
I said he's gonna average like 18, 7 and 7 or something on 18 shots a game. He's gonna ruin my life. It's gonna be the word. Change the subject. I'm upset.
Nice. Yeah. So midseason trades, I'm on board with you. A team can't be actively doing shit forever. It feels like the big swings. They took a huge swing this offseason. They've taken big swings. Yeah, the Kyrie move was a big swing. PJ Washington, big swing. Klay Thompson, big swing. I would say Gafford is a bigger swing than like most teams take at the average deadline. So for that to be like a few bullet points down the list, I think they aren't exhausted in terms of moves they could make by any stretch of the imagination. Like if shit's going wrong, I think there's stuff that they could do.
What is the pick situation like?
I think they have, I want to say 2 they can trade, but it might be 3 now since the 2031's open. It's always funny because I would hear people talk about, well, the Mavericks have gone all in. Like that's something Bill Simmons always says on his podcast. That just makes me so upset. He's like, the Mavs are all in. Like this is their team, and I'm like, they have just as many moves up their sleeves as like the Lakers. Yeah, but it's just people just think that the Mavs are out of trade chips entirely. I mean, also too, PJ and Gafford, those are guys where if they wanted to make a big swing, like I'd have to imagine those guys have decent value across the league.
Yeah. It's so funny. I never contextualized Bill Simmons Mavs talk before, but like imagining him being like, yeah, the Mavs are just really backed themselves into a corner, picking up this, team cancer, flat earth psychopath that, I mean, he just completely ran my Boston Celtics into the ground. It was embarrassing. So, the Mavs are pretty much cooked. Luka's all right, but they're not doing anything.
No, they hate Luka now.
Who? He does?
Yes.
Why?
I'm an unapologetic. I think Bill Simmons is the greatest sports podcaster of all time. Yeah. So I listen. I poke fun, but I do listen. Yeah, they hate Luka now.
Oh, I will keep an eye out or an ear out for that because I mean I listen as well. But like he wasn't in the Olympics, so we didn't get to hear anything about that. And so, that's crazy. I didn't realize he hated him.
Russello counts passes. Like that's a stat he often cites. It'd be like, well, Luke only threw 14 passes in this game. And it's like, I've never fucking heard anybody say that stat ever. Like that is the most absurd stat to track. And he'll always just be like, the Clippers are last in passes. The Mavs are second to last. The Knicks, like all these teams are good. So maybe I don't know. And I'm like, yes, this is the dumbest stat to monitor.
I think it is on NBA.com.
It is. Yes. It's a stat. And he's like trying to contextualize it. I'm like, I kind of feel like the less passes, the better. Like, it just means your team can do stuff without having to pass the basketball a million times and pray for the best.
Yeah. Oh, Derrick Jones Jr. didn't touch it 3 times that possession. Yeah. It's a failed. I mean, you might as well give the other team the ball.
Yeah. Well, that's how Jokic has broken the brains of everyone. It's like, here's this transcendent offensive player who just does everything. Everyone touches the ball. It's like, this is a once in a lifetime player. Like this is not how you can expect anybody to play realistically.
I feel like you can go either way. Like you can have a good offense with someone like a Luka, like hogging it all the time because just him, Trae Young, James Harden, the like one man offense type guys, and then you could have the more democratic Pacers, whoever else lead. I don't know who's leading the league in touches, but Jokic is the famous like hot potato, and you're just passing it around all the time. So I feel like you can go either way. So, but Russillo, he is very much like, if you have the ball a lot, he hates it. Like he like his greatest enemy is D'Angelo Russell and Trae Young. Yeah. He's like, this is ruining my life.
I mean, those guys, it's understandable. Well, I'm a Trae Young defender, so I'll go to bat for him. But it's just, man, if those Rockets teams ever got over the hump, I really wonder if we ever even hear about this. Like if Harden got one.
Yeah. I think about that all the time, like how much that Harden Chris Paul team like would have changed things if they won. I think it would change things for the worse, but so
I mean, maybe, but I'm like narrative wise, like if they didn't miss 27 straight threes, they make the NBA Finals and win because that was the Raptors year, right? Or
I think there's like when they swept LeBron is the 27. Yeah, I think it's that year.
Okay, so they win that year. Are we ever having this usage conversation? Is it like, well, Harden did it?
Yeah.
Like,
well, that's how it feels since Jokic won a little bit. Is like I feel like if you dropped Şengün like 4 years ago at this exact same point in his career, people are already like, you know, like he can't, like, what is a passing big gonna do for me and all that. But since Jokic did it, it's like you're chomping at the bit to get this same archetype, even though.
I mean, Sabonis is the perfect case study because this was a guy who's like, you can't win with this guy. Like this, you can't have this guy be your focal point on offense. And then Jokic happened. I was like, well, maybe Sabonis is like actually an MVP candidate every year.
Oh my god! It's
and
funny.
Also, we had Kobe, and so we all think, well, Cam Thomas can do it.
Well, so, yeah, it's possible. If you get Cam Thomas, Pau Gasol, all right. So that's no midseason trades probably. Which player are you most looking forward to see progress this season? I feel like there's a lot of interesting pathways on this roster.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always interested to see how Luka can get better because theoretically he's 25, so this isn't his peak. I didn't really think he could get better, but last year was far and away the best season of his career, so I'm sure there are still ways he can improve. But I mean, Lively is the obvious.
Off ball. Remember, there was that clip of him with Kyrie. He's like, "I'll be catching these, or I'll be like running around screens next year."
Yeah, I mean, he 38% from three last year. He was I think he was like a 40% catch and shoot guy, which was something he never ever did at any point in his career. So those are the ways. I think the best Luka season will be a season where the stats aren't as eye popping, but everything else just kind of translates. But I mean, Lively is the answer here pretty easily, I would say.
That's fair. Yeah, I like Lively for this. Luka is interesting. I agree. Like, I feel like there will be a year. I don't know if they'll win the championship that year or anything, but I feel like there will be a year where he's like 28, 10, and 7, and he's just like absurdly efficient, and the rest of the team around him is firing on all cylinders to the extent that like every time he touches the ball, something incredible happens. And so like that won't be, I mean, he was like 34 and 10 this year, so it'll be a little bit less, but yeah. I mean, he's just so crazy. I'm also curious, PJ Washington dribbling the basketball a little bit more this year. I feel like him attacking a closeout and like the options of him like passing being Luka, Kyrie, and Klay Thompson, that's I don't know. I feel like that's an incredible situation to be in for a guy who really, like, this will be the first stint of him like settled down in Dallas, full off season of preparation and teamwork with everybody. So that's a place that I'm looking to where I'm like, oh, that could yield some interesting actions.
Yeah, and I mean, they went to him at times. Like Luka, I mean, gets trapped on ball screens more than anybody in the NBA. It's like 3 or 4 times the next guy. Like, it's insane. And they would park PJ Washington in the middle of the floor and let him be the guy that Luka sort of dumped the ball to and let him do stuff in the short roll. Because his floater, he's got a really nice floater. Like, that's something PJ Washington has in his bag. And in that Thunder series, I mean, he shot a lot of corner threes, but they also, like, he was attacking Shea. Like, that was a goat. The Thunder were parking Shea Gilgeous-Alexander on him. Shea, by the way, I love him. His stock took a pretty decent hit to me in that series because his defense to me just got exposed. As you get steals here and there, but you're not the level defensively as some people think that you are. But PJ was posting him up. I mean, they were going at him. It was kind of crazy to see. So yeah, we'll see if PJ can take like an on-ball leap because I think that's something he can do, but for him, it's going to have to be knocking down corner threes because he was like 25% last year on those. So that just has to be better.
I'd love to see a Derek Lively little on ball jump, just enough to punish Tatum for what he does, taking away the lob. Just get off of me.
They tried to do that at times in the finals. It was just rough, but that's one of the things Lively does have. Like in the short roll, he's incredible. Like that was something immediately where it was like, whoa, what? Like this, the passing. I mean, you see plays from Lively every now and then, and you do kind of have to readjust the ceiling in your mind because I don't know what it is. Like this to me is what I thought Lively would be as a rookie. Like I was cool with this being Derek Lively, his career.
Yeah.
There's this like very serviceable rim running big who protects the rim. So I mean, we'll see where things head for him.
Yeah, his passing specifically, it's just like there are a lot, and I feel like that's another spot when Gafford was in where it's like, oh, the offense, we've taken some layers away because Gafford's passing in the short roll is not nearly the same. But like Lively, he would have some plays where it's like, really, not even like 19-year-olds, really how many guys that size are making that play? And it was a very short list. And so, I think there's a bunch of guys like that on here. I'm also looking forward. I don't know if it's with quite as much enthusiasm. It's more so like trepidation, I guess is the word. I'm nervous about Najee Marshall shooting a little bit. And if it works out, great. If it doesn't, I think they can survive it. But 38, 39%, extremely low volume last year after first several years of being like a 30% and below level shooting guy. So that's not necessarily like locking him in to be a floor spacer next year. That's something that I'll be keeping an eye on closely as the Mavs start the year next season.
Yeah, I mean, that's a valid concern. That's one that I had too. But I guess you would have to just hope that there's a Luka leap there where you're playing next to far and away the best playmaker you've ever played alongside. Maybe even the two best. Like, I don't know. Kyrie might be a better playmaker than anyone the Pelicans have had in Najee Marshall's era. Like, at least who's played genuine minutes. I don't know if he overlapped with Lonzo or whatever. I don't really remember. But, because Derek Jones Jr. was the same way. Like, he was a guy who never made threes, and he sort of cooled off as the season went on. But he was at 35% last year, which was a career best for him on 3 attempts, which was the most for him. So he'll get the opportunities, and hopefully he knocks him down. A lot of them, assuming like Najee Marshall is shooting a 3, it's gonna be wide open. So it's just up to him to make it.
Yeah. All right. So that's the progress shit. And the last one we got for you is really just what team do you think will win the NBA title? We're keeping a tally of everyone who's come on so far.
I would love for it to be the Mavs, but I can't.
In good conscience, in good faith.
Hey, do whatever you want. If you want to make a slightly biased pick, trademark, that's fine. Knock yourself out.
So my slightly biased pick would be the Mavericks, but I can't, in good faith, pick anyone other than the Celtics right now. I mean, they are the same exact team, and they steamrolled everyone last year. So
yeah, it's a little annoying to. I mean, we ran into this. We had Jackson Frank on the other day, and like there was a moment about 15, 20 minutes left where we're talking the Sixers. They're cool. All this shit's changed. Oh my God. And then it was like, does any of this really matter? Like, are we all just like fighting for second place? So there is
you would have to hope that the Porzingis stuff, because that's like a sort of underrated storyline going into the season, that he's supposed to not come back to like January or February, maybe. So that's interesting because guess what? I watched him on my team for a long time. And the 3-4 week Kristaps Porzingis injuries were very rarely 3 or 4 weeks. So that's something to monitor, where if he's hurt and Horford looks old, maybe there's a world where the Celtics are much more beatable than they were a year ago.
And they see one of like the 5 best players in the conference or something in the post.
Yeah, that's
be cool. I don't know.
They're tested in the Eastern Conference playoffs at any point. Because theoretically, the Knicks are built to beat them, but I don't think they will. I mean, I love Jalen Brunson, but imagining him in a 7-game series where they're just throwing so much at him scares me. The Sixers are, I'm a believer in them, but we have not seen them play. Like that's a completely new basketball team, basically. So we'll see how that all shapes up. It's just they're so good. Like they are very good.
Yeah, it's not as nearly as doom and gloom as like the 2018 Warriors or anything.
Yeah.
But looking forward, it is like you fall into that same routine of like, I need way more shit to go right for them to lose than I do for any other team when I'm like stacking up what it would take.
What made that Warriors team so bad was it was like the only way that this ends in anything other than a Warriors championship for like the next 10 years is if someone pisses KD off and he leaves. And then that happened. So we all lucked out a little bit there. But for the Celtics, It is like, all right, Drew's getting older. The new cap rules, like their roster's gonna be so expensive at some point that they just can't fill out their roster anymore. But then, like, they get. What do you think about the Lonnie Walker stuff?
I think it's just a thing where it's like if it doesn't work, it's like such a low risk, high upside thing that it's a little frustrating that nobody else did it. Just so that, like, to the extent that like Boston wouldn't have that option to like luck into another role player, because he was good off the catch and shoot last year. He was efficient in like a Brooklyn situation that's bad compared to like the shots that he'll be getting in Boston in limited run. He was good in those minutes offensively. I don't know what he's going to look like on defense, but like if he's even like a passable bench guy, it's just another thing where it's like, oh, okay. So they have the best starting unit in the NBA. And then like when the bench comes out, it's mostly capable guys still. Like that's a luxury that, like, I mean, I wish the fucking Nuggets had it that a lot of teams don't have. And so, I think it's crazy.
I think the pathway is for. Oh wait, well, finish on Lonnie Walker.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think the Lonnie Walker thing is just, it goes to show how bored everyone is, because I just think that is such a nothing move. Everyone just peak panic that it reminded me, like, he's not the level of DeMarcus Cousins, but when the Warriors got the washed up DeMarcus Cousins, and everyone's like, oh, just cancel the season.
Yeah. The recipe for the Celtics falling apart. So we talked Porzingis injury. Remember, we still have like a month left of the offseason, so there's still more time for him to get in a fight at a club at lobby at 2 a.m. So that could extend it. And then we have Jason Tatum, confidence shaken, benching at the Olympics. He's a fraud, and he's worried imposter syndrome. So
that can go one of two ways for sure.
That tears him down. Jaylen Brown falls deeper into the conspiracy rabbit hole. He thinks
that's where I was going to go.
People are following him, so he stops practicing.
He's getting gang stalked.
Yeah. And then,
dude, NBA player think like gang stalking arc where like everyone in the arena is like paid to be there.
I'm surprised there hasn't been something like that yet. Just like law of averages.
And then all the gang stalking people would be like, yes, he's right. Finally, you guys are seeing it. He's telling you. You won't listen to us, but you're listening to him. But yeah, and then Derek White, Drew Holiday, they're like, hey, we just won the Olympics because of us, because we were like the two of the biggest part. We were out of everyone on the Celtics. It was our team. We hate Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown now for getting all the credit.
That sounds like a real arc for them to. Yeah, that sounds like something they would do.
And Joe Mazzulla has a dream where Jesus tells him to do something else and not coach basketball anymore.
Yeah, that all sounds possible. I think
the Jesus thing sounds more doable than the Derek White thing to me. I'm not going to lie.
Could we stage it? Could we stage a divine intervention?
The Joe Mazzulla thing has like a 15% chance of happening. So that's on the table. Then it's all started because Jason Kidd in the finals was like, yeah, Jaylen Brown's their best player. And that really sparked the debate.
And we all knew like what he was doing. We're like, nice try, Jason.
Yeah.
Well, I honest to God, knowing Kidd, I think he was just being honest. Like, I think what he was saying is he's been their best player over the last like month, which was true.
How do you feel about Jason Kidd? Because I feel definitely us too. Up until the trade deadline, we were like, this fucking idiot, this moron, like he doesn't know what he's doing. And then they make the trade, the defense skyrockets. Like, I guess he knows what he's doing a little bit.
I've long been a believer that coaches don't really matter unless you have like one of the absolute best. My thing's always if the team is bought in and like the locker room's not in shambles, then usually that's good enough. So I've been a kid even after the season where they missed the playoffs. I was like, firing Kidd's not solving any of these problems.
That's not the issue. Yeah.
Right. That is not the root cause of the problems here. Last year, when they went on a losing streak, I did have a moment of weakness where I was like, yeah, get this fucking guy out. Like, I'm done with him. I'm ready to move on. But the team likes him. They play hard for him. So really that's like, because we don't know, like none of us know what goes on there. We don't know what their game plans are. We don't know what, like we can sit there and figure it out by watching, but we don't know what they do in practice. We don't know, oh, this guy was supposed to be doing this and he didn't. So now we're blaming Jason Kidd when it was really this guy's fault. Like, I don't know. Like,
yeah, like Kyrie was actively ignoring Steve Nash play calls during his time in Brooklyn.
But that's the thing too. Like if it's Steve Nash could be a great coach, but if the locker room hates your guts, like it's over for you.
Yeah.
Doc Rivers, personality guy. He
exactly.
prevents that from happening. It happens after.
Yeah. That's when he starts to throw
Nice.
guys under the bus.
Oh man. All right. Well, that's really all we got for you today. Thanks for coming on. Is there anything you want to plug while you have the platform here?
Yeah, I mean youtube.com/slightly biased. That's really it.
All right. I'll link it in the description. I'll
Smash
tag you
that
in all
like
this
button.
shit. Smash the like button. Comment slightly biased down below if you've made it this far.
Comment slurs in Slovenian towards him.
Whoa,
Yeah.
nice. Okay. Maybe not.
I've seen them all.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for coming on. And
Yeah,
Pau
thanks for having me on. That
Gasol,
was fun.
Pau Gasol, take it away.
Lay down a list of what